Let's transition and let's talk about the AFC North battle between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We know anytime you have the Ravens and the Steelers facing off against one another, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a brawl between two physical football teams, although the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are not a physical football team anymore. They are more of a finesse football team. But the Steelers, they did beat the Ravens 20-19. They improved to 6-5-1 on the season, pretty much saved their season. The Ravens were stopped on a potential game-winning two-point conversion with 12 seconds left. For the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson, he went 23 of 37. He threw for 253 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. For the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, he went 21 of 31. He threw for 236 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Johnson, the receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, he had 8 receptions, 105 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. So after the win, I got a cousin, right, who is a diehard Steelers fan. So in the immediate aftermath of the Steelers beating the Ravens, my cousin calls me, right, because he watches my show. And he's a supporter of Wise Guys on the Worldwide Sports Network. So he watches my shows quite frequently. And he has heard me in the past talk about how I don't believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are a true playoff contender in the AFC. I've said it, and I've been consistent with this throughout the entire season. Even earlier in the season, when the Pittsburgh Steelers went on their 4-game winning streak, I said, I don't believe the Steelers are true playoff contenders in the AFC. So, of course, my cousin, who's a Steelers fan, he calls me and says, how about them Steelers? Got a 6-5-1 record. We 3rd in the AFC North right now because we got an opportunity to compete for the AFC North crown and compete for a wild card spot in the AFC. How about those Steelers? We on the come up. We're gonna make the playoffs, cuz. That's what my cousin called and told me. And I had to respectfully tell my cousin, what are you watching? Because I thought watching this game, the Ravens lost this game more than the Steelers won this game. I had a Facebook post Sunday. I'm going to read it because watching the game and seeing how terrible the Steelers offensively looked in the first 3 quarters, I was looking at the game like they are awful. This is my post, Sunday, 6:21 p.m. Right in the middle of the Ravens-Steelers game, I said, boy, it's hard to watch the Steelers. They are awful. That was at 6:21 p.m. Sunday afternoon, or Sunday evening, rather. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers, they only had 3 points in the first 3 quarters of this game. They had 17 points in the 4th quarter. But in the first 3 quarters, I didn't see anything from the Steelers offense that would give me cause to pause and say, wait a minute, maybe the Steelers are true contenders in the AFC. So I had to explain respectfully to my cousin, who is a diehard Steelers fan, that, bro, did you watch the game? Did you see how they struggled in the first 3 quarters to get into the end zone? They had 1 field goal in 3 quarters. 1 field goal. They didn't score a single touchdown in the first 3 quarters of this game. And you want me to believe that the Pittsburgh Steelers are true contenders in the AFC? You want me to believe that the Steelers can compete with the LA Chargers, with the Cincinnati Bengals, who beat them both times they've played them, by the way. They swept the Steelers this year. The Bengals did. You want me to believe that the Steelers can compete with the Patriots, with the Buffalo Bills, with the Kansas City Chiefs? No, I still do not believe in this Pittsburgh Steelers team. I don't believe they are a playoff team. I think they lucked up because they went up against a Baltimore Ravens team who offensively is just as bad as they are. And I'm going to get to Baltimore here in a bit. But I don't believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers because I think they rely on Ben Roethlisberger way too much. And I think Roethlisberger is washed. He's washed. I know in this game he had over 200 passing yards. He had 2 touchdowns. What did he go? 21 of 31, which means he completed 68% of his passes. But Roethlisberger is washed. He is past his prime. And I said it last week that I think it's time for Ben Roethlisberger to retire. You saw last week that there were reports out of Pittsburgh that Roethlisberger had told teammates and former teammates that he expects this year to be his last year in Pittsburgh. You think? I mean, as awful as you have been this year, Ben. I mean, on the year, Roethlisberger. Let's talk about his statistical numbers, right? This season, Roethlisberger, he has 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He has over 2,700 passing yards. He's completing 65% of his passes. Roethlisberger is not an elite quarterback anymore. And I believe in order for the Steelers to be true Super Bowl contenders, you need Roethlisberger to be able to play with opposing quarterbacks like Justin Herbert, like Joe Burrow, like Patrick Mahomes, like Josh Allen. And I don't think he can do that in a key playoff moment. I don't. And I think the recipe for the Steelers to be successful is to run the football with Najee Harris, play great defense, and have Roethlisberger make 1 or 2 plays a game for them to win football games. I don't even think Roethlisberger can do that anymore. I don't think Roethlisberger is a quarterback that you can win a Super Bowl with at this moment in his career. And I got a lot of respect for Ben Roethlisberger. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion. He led the NFL twice in passing yards. He's one of the most clutch quarterbacks in NFL history. But I think Roethlisberger's time has come to an end. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers need to try and figure out who their franchise quarterback is going to be moving forward, because it damn sure ain't Ben Roethlisberger. And I don't think it's Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins. So I think Mike Tomlin and general manager Kevin Colbert need to do their due diligence and try to figure out who's going to be their franchise quarterback moving forward, because Roethlisberger is not the answer. They won this game because they lucked up against the Baltimore Ravens team, who is dealing with a lot of injuries. Baltimore is dealing with so many injuries to key players. They lost Marlon Humphreys in this game to a shoulder injury. That's why you saw John Harbaugh go for 2 and try to win the football game, because he knew defensively they didn't have an answer for Deontay Johnson. They had no one who could cover him. They didn't have another defensive back who they could put in the back end to cover Johnson. So I think that's why you saw John Harbaugh go for the 2-point conversion and try to win the football game. Unfortunately, Lamar Jackson wasn't able to complete the pass to Mark Andrews, and the Ravens lost this game and fell to 8-4 on the season. They still first in the AFC North. But I think the Steelers lucked up. I still don't believe they're a playoff team. Look at their schedule down the stretch. Right? Thursday, on Fox, they got a matchup against the Minnesota Vikings and Kirk Cousins. Even though the Vikings lost to the Detroit Lions, I still think the Minnesota Vikings have a high-powered offense because they got weapons like Justin Jefferson. They got Adam Thielen. Dalvin Cook is injured right now. I'm not sure if he's going to play in the game Thursday. But I think the Vikings can beat the Steelers. And I think Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback right now than Ben Roethlisberger is. So I think that's a game the Steelers could lose. Week 15, they're home against the Titans. It's a possibility that Derrick Henry is going to rejoin the Titans at some point this season. I'm not sure if Julio Jones and A.J. Brown is going to return back to the lineup. I think Tennessee had a bye week in week 13. But I think the Titans can beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh. So that's another game the Steelers could lose. Week 16, they're at Kansas City. They're going to lose to Kansas City. Okay? They'll lose that game to Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to even talk about that game much. Week 17, they're home against Baker Mayfield and the Browns, that's a game they could lose. But they could also win that game. That's a 50-50 game, toss-up. And then in Week 18, they're at Baltimore against Lamar Jackson and the crew. I think the Steelers could win that game as well. So that's a 50-50 game. So the last 5 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers: at Minnesota, home against Tennessee, at Kansas City, home against Cleveland, at Baltimore. I say the Steelers, man, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They'll lose to the Titans, they'll lose to the Chiefs, and they're going to lose to the Vikings. They'll beat the Browns and they'll beat the Ravens. So they'll finish on the season, let's say 8-1. That'll be their record. 8-1. That's the Steelers' record for me. 8-1. I think that's what they're going to finish with. And I don't think that's a record that's going to get you into the playoffs. I don't. Not 8-1. Not when you got teams like the Miami Dolphins, who have emerged as a wild card team in the AFC. You got teams like the Cincinnati Bengals, the Buffalo Bills, the LA Chargers. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think the Las Vegas Raiders are also better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I just don't think the Steelers are a playoff team. I think they're going to finish 8-1. And I don't think 8-1 gets you into the postseason. Let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens for a bit. In this game, the Baltimore Ravens offensively, they had 22 first downs. They went 8 of 16 on third down. They had 219 passing yards, 107 rushing yards. They had 326 total yards of offense. My biggest issue with this Baltimore Ravens offense is I think it's Lamar Jackson or bust. And I think they make Lamar Jackson have to play hero ball. And I don't think that's a recipe for success. I think because they have all the injuries that they're dealing with, they have put this offense into the hands of Lamar Jackson. And I think Lamar Jackson is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the NFL. I think Lamar Jackson is a quarterback who you can win a Super Bowl with. Yes, I know he's had trouble being a consistent pocket passer, but I think Lamar Jackson can throw the football down the field effectively. And I think you can win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson. But I don't believe it will be this year because I think the Ravens offense is Lamar Jackson or bust. And I believe that they just drop Lamar Jackson back to throw and they want him to make something out of nothing. And sometimes he can do it. That's how dynamic Lamar Jackson is. But sometimes the Ravens get into trouble offensively and they aren't able to sustain drives. And I think that's what you have to do if you want to be true contenders in the AFC. And I think this year, because they have so many injuries, they can't really run the football like they've been able to in years in the past. Like in years in the past, we've seen them run the football and have the best rushing attack in the NFL. And right now, that's just not the case with this Ravens team. So far this year, they are tied for third in the NFL in rushing yards per game. They have 147 rushing yards per game. That's mainly because of Lamar Jackson. There's no other player on the offensive side of the ball who I believe teams feel threatened by. Like who? Like Devontae Freeman, maybe 3-4 years ago, but not now. Murray, maybe 3-4 years ago. Like Lamar Jackson, he is the quarterback, he is the running back, he is everything for this Baltimore Ravens team. And I think in order for them to be true Super Bowl contenders, they need a dynamic rushing attack to win games. Like they need an elite rushing attack. And I don't think they have it right now. I know they're ranked third in the NFL, but I think that's only because of Lamar. Like, and I don't think I think they just got so many injuries. I think this is the year where the Baltimore Ravens, they probably are going to make the playoffs. Do I believe they're Super Bowl contenders in the AFC? I don't. I don't think they're better than the Patriots. I don't believe they're better than the Chiefs. Are they better than the Bills? Maybe. Maybe that's a toss-up because I think the Bills are one-dimensional. If the Bills and Ravens played on a neutral field, I might favor the Ravens slightly. I don't know. I mean, it's a toss up, but I don't think the Ravens are better than the Chiefs or the Patriots. And so I think they're a team that could lose in the first round of the playoffs this year, because I just don't think Lamar Jackson has enough help. I don't. And I think because they have so many injuries, you saw again in this game, Marlon Humphreys, he left the game with the shoulder injury. They say he's going to be done for the season. So Marcus Peters, he's done for the year. Marlon Humphreys, he's done for the year. They got too many injuries. And so I think there's too many injuries to overcome. And I don't believe the Ravens are true contenders in the AFC. But I do think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be a playoff team. I really, really do. We'll see if they can win the AFC North, because we know the Bengals at 7-5, they are trying to win the AFC North and host a home playoff game here in Cincinnati. So I'm looking forward to the matchup in Week 16 when Baltimore comes here to Cincinnati to take on Joe Burrow and the Bengals. It's going to be a big-time matchup in the AFC North. That game in Week 16 is going to be the determining factor on who wins the AFC North. Week 16, Ravens at Bengals. So Bengal fans, Ravens fans, circle that game on your calendar. We'll see what happens with the Ravens moving forward. I like their head coach in John Harbaugh. We've already seen John Harbaugh win a Super Bowl as a head coach. I like Lamar Jackson as your quarterback to build your franchise around. I think you should hand Lamar Jackson the check and let him sign the check and sign him to whatever he wants. Like, hey, Lamar, you won football games at a high level. You won your first playoff game last year against the Tennessee Titans. So you got that monkey off your back. I like Lamar Jackson as a pocket passer. I don't think he's an elite pocket passer like Joe Burrow, like Justin Herbert just yet, but I think he's gotten better at throwing the ball from the pocket. So I believe you can win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, but it won't be this year.